Hello everyone, it's the queen of keeping weekly schedules, reporting to you now from somebody else's basement. Here to speak into the void about things that other people have created and probably profited from, while I myself create nothing and profit nothing. Let's get started! Today I'm doing something that maybe I should have done first, which is completing the Booktube newbie tag. So first off, I should say that if you're new to me, and the only reason that you wouldn't be new to me is if you knew me in real life, but if you're a stranger and you're new to me, hi! It's so nice to have you. My name is Meg. I'm a 25-year-old musician, composer, singer, piano teacher, but I also happen to be a lifelong and avid reader, and I'm trying to create more content around that. Which brings us into our first question for the Booktube newbie tag, which is, why did I create this channel? Basically, quarantine happened. I didn't have as much work because being a musician during a pandemic sucks. And I kind of do what I normally do when I don't know what else to do, which is I just read constantly. And because I was isolating and going a little bit insane, I thought, why not document this? Why not take my personal coping mechanism and use it as a way to reach new people? Seriously, talking about books is something I've always loved to do. It's always been a great hobby of mine, and yeah, what better time to do it than 2020? I've posted 3 videos so far, and the feedback I've gotten from my friends and family is that they really like hearing the things that I have to recommend. So I think with each question, I'm going to recommend a book. So if you too are longing to escape reality, are drowning in books, or going slightly insane, I have to recommend Erin Morgenstern's The Starless Sea. This book is about a secret, legendary, somewhat mythical society that protects books in something called the Starless Sea. It follows a main character who really isn't sure how he fits into this whole narrative, but his curiosity drives him forward. I think you'll like this book if you like that warm, cozy, somewhat baffling aesthetic that you can just surround yourself with and forget that the real world even exists. The next question is, what fun or unique things do I bring to Booktube? You mean, besides my personal charms? Actually, I do have something that I think is pretty unique. This little gem right here is my personal book log. It's a detailed list of all of the titles and authors I have read since August 17th, 2007. Since I know readers can't do math, I will let you know that that is 13 years of documented reading experience. This book has seen book trends that have lived and died like you wouldn't believe. The vampire trend? I've got it. The dystopian YA trend? I've got it. All the books I had to read for school, they're in here. That is a lot of books. And I remember all of them, and that is a lot of information for a single person to have in their brain, and I really want to put it to good use. Sometimes I think it's important not just to talk about the books and why we recommend them, but also how we felt and who we were when we were reading them. I know I've changed quite a bit since I started this at age 12. When I look back into the earliest entry, I remember how I felt because I remember what it was like to read that book. So what I really hope to make this channel is not just a resource, a database, lots of knowledge. I also want to make this a place for fun and storytelling, because storytelling is kind of what we're all about here on Booktube, right? Right? And as for my recommendation, if you like watching a woman progress through the stages of girlhood into adulthood, if you want to see her go from accepting her bland circumstances to questioning everything, then I have to recommend the Bildungsroman, Jane Eyre. We gotta love books by women in the 19th century. Jane is such a multi-layered character. I think a lot of young girls can really relate to Jane Eyre. I certainly am no exception. The writing is gorgeous. It's a classic for a reason. I could talk about it all day, but I won't. The next question in the Booktube newbie tag is, what am I most excited about? Like I said, I'm excited to be able to tell stories about the books I've read, recommend things, but I think what I'm most excited for at this point is joining the Booktube community. I want to make friends. Like I said before, the social isolation was making me a little bit crazy. I was turning to the books because, you know how in books there are characters that kind of are better than most people? Oh god, that's such a dangerous joke, because some of my friends are gonna be like, haha, very funny, and then some of them are gonna be like, I knew that's how she really felt. No shade to the friends that I already have. I know that you exist. You become friends with the characters that you really enjoy. And I really fully support that. I just think that I would also like to be friends with people I really enjoy. But I love consuming content because I love to share it, and I love the relationships that come along with that. So I'm really excited to get to know some of the fans and creators that are already on this platform. So in that vein, I'm going to recommend a book that I think represents squad goals. I guess let's give it to The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. I don't know if Booktube's heard of this series. This is another one of those series that just, you feel like you could wrap yourself up in it like a blanket, because it's just so... My personal opinion of this series is that the plot sort of takes some weird twists and turns, but it never feels like it jumps the shark because you're so willing to go with the characters anywhere. The way they relate to each other is so sweet and heartfelt, and that makes them feel like your own best friends as a reader. I just love people who love each other. Don't read into that too much. The next question in the Booktube newbie tag is, why do I love reading? I mean, I think I've already mentioned so many things. It can be an escape from reality. It can help let you meet new characters that you fall in love with. I love adventures. I love learning. I love getting to travel to new places and times and getting to learn new things. Yeah, I love getting to explore. I'm going to recommend a sprawling adventure fantasy series. And in this case, I recommend The Witchlands by Susan Dennard. In this book series, only 3.5 books are out. I think there will be at least one more, but there might be more than that. It follows a group of young people who live in this fantasy world in which some characters are gifted with elemental magic and witch powers. What I like about this series is that it's one of those where we get to visit several countries and several cultures within the world. We get to explore the class system of this world a little bit. And the cherry on top is that as we're exploring all of this incredible world building, we are grounded by these very real and heartfelt characters. Their motivations are clear, the relationships are clear. The next question is, what book or book series got you into reading? Look, I'm just gonna lay it out there. I'm just gonna be honest. The book series that has really probably held the most influence over my life is Harry Potter. I mean, Deathly Hallows is like literally the first entry in this book log. Like, I finished the Harry Potter series for the first time and then started this. But given that so much has been said about Harry Potter, I don't really know what I could add at this point. Given that its creator has revealed herself to be disappointing in her views, I'm going to talk about a different series, one that I read much earlier. Before I ever started this, the book that I remember reading that, like, from then on I was going to be a reader was Ella Enchanted by Gail Carson Levine. Before anyone asks, yes, this is the book that inspired the movie of the same name with Anne Hathaway. The movie was a cultural moment, I'll give it that. But for those of us connoisseurs who read the book first, Ella Enchanted is this retelling of Cinderella with fairies and curses and elves and just wonderfully magical. When I first read it when I was in 3rd grade, it spurred this thing where I just had to read everything by Gail Carson Levine. And she's still to this day one of my favorite authors. Her fairy tales are just, all of her books I think are perfect for young girls who are just getting into reading, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and also perfect for adults who just like revisiting that world and how charming and wonderful it is. The next question in the tag is questions that I would ask my favorite booktubers. I guess I should start by talking about some of the booktubers that I follow. I kind of began my journey into booktube by following Haley at Haley in Bookland, Hannah at A Clockwork Reader. One of the newer booktubers that I just started following was Reagan at Peruse Project. And one of the booktubers that I'm currently watching the most is Cindy at Read with Cindy. Obviously these people have been doing this for a while. They have lots of followers and seem, at least from my perspective, like they really understand the booktube community. So I guess my question for them would be, how do you enter the community? How do you find your people? Because I'd love to collaborate, join book clubs, find new recommendations. Yeah, I'd love to know. And the book that I think of when I think about wanting to join the community is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. In this book, the main character is really sheltered, is really more of a passive observer of the world around her rather than a participant in modern society. She's kind of eccentric, but as you get to understand her and her quirks a little bit more, you really come to love her and appreciate her growth. Again, it kind of comes down to finding people who support her and are willing to help her through her journey. And that's what I would love to do with Booktube. The next question is, what challenges do I anticipate? Keeping a consistent video schedule is going to be really hard for me. I already know that. I've talked about this in my previous videos, but my living situation right now is a little transient. I'm not necessarily sure if I'm going to be in one place for very long. I know. And also, to be frank, dealing with mental illness really makes it difficult to keep a consistent schedule, not just filming things, but editing them, and finding time to read all the books that I want to read. I think the only thing to really do is just be honest about what I read and what I liked and my experiences with it. I'm just really not going to have it together all the time. But my goal is to post once a week. And yeah, I have really interesting stuff planned out. So I'm going to recommend a book that I really enjoyed reading, specifically for scenes that have to do with being an artist, being a creator, and the challenges that come from that is Daisy Jones and the Six. Another one I know has been passed around along booktube channels for over a year now. This is a really unique way of telling a story. It's written like almost a transcription of an audio interview. I just found this narrative about how a group of people with their own ambitions and their own ideas comes together to make a work of art. So cool. I'm a musician. This is about musicians. I love hearing about other people's creative processes. The next question is, when did I start reading? I'm laughing because in my notes, all I wrote is a child. Yeah, I've been reading since forever. Like I said, probably when I was around 8 years old was when it really became a major hobby of mine and something I actively sought out. But as my book log will attest to, I have been reading that whole time. It's not always consistent. It comes in waves. For example, in the years 2007 and 2008, I was reading like hundreds of books. You know, I was like a sponge absorbing everything. Then things kind of slowed down when I got to high school around 2010. It's like pretty slow, and then you can see great bursts of activity during like summer breaks. In college, the reading slows down quite a bit, but that's honestly because the books that I was reading were much denser. I was spending more time with them, studying them, and so I wasn't rapidly consuming everything like I did when I was younger. I'm happy to say that since I've graduated from college and since quarantine especially, I have kind of been back to my middle school self, my adolescence. So here's my recommendation. A big reason that I am able to read as much as I am is that I read what I want to in the moment. That isn't always the intellectual stuff. I love classic literature. I love nonfiction. I love poetry. But sometimes, especially times when I'm really stressed out, it's a lot easier to convince myself to read YA, romance, the stuff that maybe my college self would have turned her nose up at. But truly, there's no reason to turn your nose up at this stuff. It's really great. And not everything has to be groundbreaking and intellectual to be good and worth your time. So with that in mind, I'm going to recommend The Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. It's a retelling of fairy tales in a completely new way that I've never seen before. It's told in our world, but in the future, so there are cyborgs and spaceships and a colony of people living on the moon. Badass, diverse, female characters, action-packed plot that is just fun and sometimes a little bit campy, but like, that's why you like it. This is a book series that I love so much that even when I'm not feeling particularly bookish, I can always come back to it and I read them pretty quickly. The next question is, where do I read? Where do I read? I read anywhere I am, baby. I'm a vagabond. I'm a troubadour. You can't hold me down in one place. The book's gotta come with me. No, but seriously, another trick that I've learned about how to read a lot is using my new favorite app, Libby. If you have a library card, you can access books for free on Libby, including ebooks and audiobooks. I always try to have at least 3 different books on hand. A physical book for when I'm going to sleep and I don't want screens interfering with me. I have an ebook that I can read from my phone on the train or, just waiting at the doctor's office. It's easier than bringing a physical copy. And then I always have an audiobook that I download and listen to when I need to kind of keep my hands free, like when I'm cooking or driving. I don't have any control over the space that I occupy. Hey, I was editing this and I realized I forgot to give a book recommendation for this part of the question. So even though it doesn't really connect to anything I was saying before, I'm just going to go ahead and recommend 1,000 Splendid Suns by Khaled Hossieni. Hossieni? Yeah. I can't think of much to say about it right now. It's just one of my favorite books of all time, and I think you'd really enjoy it. And then the last question on my list is, what kind of books do I read? I read lots of fantasy, adventure, sci-fi. I love YA, but it doesn't have to be YA. I have a soft spot for romance novels, especially Regency romance novels, stemming from my love of Jane Austen, obviously. So yeah, I read lots of genres. This makes it hard for me to recommend something based off of that. Okay, for Regency romance, I recommend anything by Courtney Milan. For historical fiction, I'm going to recommend The Queen of the Night by Alexander Chee. Classics has got to be 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Oh, and like fantasy, let's go with The Last Magician by Lisa Maxwell. Anyway, I hope that's a reading list that'll keep you busy for a while. So if you stuck with me for this long, thank you for watching my video and for your very warm welcome into Booktube. I'm excited to give this a go. If you liked this and you want to see me succeed in my dreams, why don't you drop a comment and give me your top 3 book recommendations, something that I haven't mentioned in this video. That's all she wrote. Goodbye.
Some say the world will end in